Friends, Fever fans, welcome back to a special edition of Fever Replay, your home for a normally weekly breakdown of Fever games and news. This episode, as always, is brought to you by the love of the game. Sometimes you win lots of money for the love of the game. I am Chris Ord, and once again, I am joined by who I like to call the commish, my co-host, Keisha Gallagher. How you doing, Keisha?
I'm doing very well. I'm even better after this game. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. That was a hell of a game. I want to jump right into it, but I have a quick correction. People were just flooding the comments because of the last episode, because I said several times that Timpson was 6'1", when she's in fact listed as 6'2".
Ooh.
So sorry. You know, we take accuracy so important here at Fever Replay, so I want to get that out of the way. Anyway, let's talk about the Commissioner's Cup. Spoiler alert, we won.
Woo-hoo.
We won. We took down the Lynx. We gave them their third loss of the season, and we're recording this moments after the game. It's hot and fresh and ready to eat. So the Fever came out this game, pretty rough. And for those of you who were holding your breath, like I was hoping that Caitlin Clark would be in the game, she was not. She appears to be actually injured. It was not a feint. It was not a trick. It was not a trap. She's still hurt. But what did you think about how the Fever started out that game?
I was concerned. At the end of the first quarter, the Fever were shooting below 30% from the field. It was looking like it was going to be a tough start, but that's a lot of basketball left ahead. I was curious to see what the response would be, especially because on the opposite side of that, Minnesota was shooting 60% in that first quarter. So it looked like at the start of the game, at the top there, Minnesota was firing on all cylinders, and we were kind of struggling a bit to find our footing.
What I saw, I think, in the beginning, and I felt like this in the beginning, and it was really reinforced later as hindsight kind of set in, but I felt like we were pretty much doing everything right, at least on defense, for sure. But on offense, a lot of things were going right. The only thing we were missing was the finishing. The ball wasn't going in. And I remember thinking to myself, as we were down, I was like, if you could pick one thing for us to not be doing, that's the one. Because all the other stuff will lead to shots going in. You know what I mean? Like, we were hustling. We were physical. We were very... it felt like we were making good reads and everything. The ball just wasn't going in. And that seemed the same, at least in the second half, for the Lynx. There was just a lot of misses. And I think that's because it was such a physical game. These are two teams that pride themselves on their defense.
It was beyond physical, and I will hold off on what was going on with Boston and Collier towards the end there because that was getting real juicy. But the physicality was up, and again, kind of picking up what we were talking about and just yesterday, but they're tired. There's been a lot of basketball, and this is a huge game. $500,000 on the line, and, the charity impact, it's a lot, and it means a lot to a lot of people. And I think both teams are super well aware of that, but sometimes you rise to the occasion, and sometimes you really fumble. I think the pressure that was put on Collier as the game continued really threw the Lynx, and no one was able to step up. There were little hot spots for them here and there, but the overwhelming presence of Natasha Howard on Collier, then Boston, and then the mid-range was off for them. They couldn't get the ball inside, and we just kept rising to the occasion. This is an opportunity where the door was open, and we walked right through. Well, we didn't walk right through it. We kicked the door open and then walked right through it over and over and over again.
No, when Minnesota was up by 14, I kept thinking they're leaving the door open on this game. This is not a game where it felt like Minnesota was running away with it. It was like, gosh, they should be up by a lot more right now, but they're not like capitalizing on it. I felt like the tail of the whole game, but especially the first half, was that we were crushing them on rebounds. It was insane.
Well, I have some of the stats from the rebounds. I know at one point in the fourth, we were out rebounding them by almost 10, and our offensive rebounds, we had 10 to their 6 with 4 minutes left in the fourth. We were definitely eating the boards, and they could not come up with any second chance opportunity. It was a struggle to see the Lynx like this, honestly.
Yeah, but then on the other side of it, this was a huge team win for the Fever. Like, obviously, our tentpole, well-deserved MVP, even with the game that Boston had, which was incredible. Natasha Howard, like we talked about it, I think last podcast, her ability to just like muscle herself into a game. Mm-hmm. Not force things, but just like do the dirty work, get herself into the game. And she did that, and it wasn't hitting at first, but she kept pushing and pushing and pushing until it was like, okay, we can't stop Natasha Howard anymore. Like, we can't do anything. But I want to say this was a huge team game because, like, first off, Aari McDonald leading us. We don't have Caitlin Clark. That's a huge hole. Aari McDonald is not Caitlin Clark, but she can do the things that Caitlin does. Mm-hmm. She is a shot creator. That's what Caitlin is first and foremost. She creates shots for herself and her team, and Aari's able to do that. And she's able to do it at a high clip. She's able to do it consistently in different ways. And for Aari to step into that position in a game as big as this was something else, you know? Because like I've been singing Aari's praises every time she steps on the court for the Fever. But in the back of my head, I was always like, well, it's hard to know when push comes to shove late in the season, in the playoffs. Like, is this going to work, or is this just because, you know, this is because she's brand new? This was one of those push comes to shove, easy things aren't happening, but Aari was still productive, which I think is just a sign of how good a fit she is. We had Timpson played big girl minutes. You know, she's not jumping out on the stat sheet or anything. But what I saw from her was like she was out there setting screens, you know, cutting with speed, doing all the little pieces that we need her to do. If we don't have that, we have a huge hole in our team, you know. She's like the one on our boat. We have a huge hole in the side, and she's got her big pterodactyl hand holding the water out. And it's like, do we need this boat completely perfect, fixed, smooth, running great? No, we need to not sink. And I feel like that's what Timpson like 100% did in this game. Like, you just saw every role player stepping up and doing what we needed, especially from the bench, when our starters were getting smacked around in the first half.
Yeah. I mean, I say this with peace and love, and I mean it as the greatest compliment, but she was just annoying. She was annoying on the court. She was causing chaos. She was disturbing plays in the best way possible.
Hands up constantly. Constantly hands up. And
Very
sometimes
active.
that mean a foul. But, like, the point was you had to work your way around Timpson. So with somebody who's, like, just starting to get real minutes, I mean, what more could you ask for from that position? She's like, this is what I can do, and I'm going to do it this game.
Yeah, well, on top of the stellar performances, I know we kind of were fluffing the feathers of Natasha Howard, but one thing I really think we need to highlight for that performance, other than the aggressive play she was putting up, she was perfect from the free throw line. She scored 16 points in this game. 8 of those points were from the free throw. So that's the kind of impact that we're having when you get fouled 4 times and can put up those kind of points, have that kind of presence on the boards with this team pushing her forward, Kelsey Mitchell support, Boston taking... I just felt like it was a huge team effort in the face of adversity when everyone doubted the Fever. What were the odds at the start of this game? 27%? It was less than 28%, I'm pretty sure, that people thought that they had a chance of winning. And I think in this league, you can never underestimate any team. The talent is just too deep. They're too good at basketball for you to think that there's any easy W's. And this game, I think, clearly outlined that.
Yeah, what I saw from the team amidst adversity, down 14, was they didn't hang their heads at all. Their drive never dipped. They kept pushing. A lot of these rebounds were not like someone leaping into the air to grab it away from somebody. They were almost all box out rebounds. They were almost all a ball falling into a Fever hand that was wide open. Why were they wide open? Because people were doing the dirty work under the basket. Mm-hmm. Like, it was kind of crazy. And especially because it was so clear that the Lynx were deficient in this category. Like, watching it was like, okay, if they're going to stand a chance, they really need to start working on these boards. But the Fever just had put in the work early. They were boxing out, they were clearing out space, and they were grabbing the rebounds again and again and again and again. It was really cool. I think maybe, just speculating here, but maybe because they were missing their superstar, they were like, the only way we win this is by hustling and doing the dirty work and getting in their face and being annoying. Like, that's the only way we win. And they were so focused on it.
Yeah, I think the playbook against the Lynx for any team is that, because the Lynx, they're such a structured team. They run a very similar offense, and they have for as long as Reeves has been the coach there. But they like to take their shot selection off the plays they run, the way they run them, when they want them. And the whole game were being forced, with the exception of the first quarter, the remaining of the game, they were forced to take shots that were not clear, that were not wide open for a bulk of those looks. I think the only real player who was seeing the ball the way they wanted to was Smith, and she just couldn't do it on her own. I mean, I have never seen Collier struggle like that. I've never seen Courtney Williams struggle like that. And no one else could pick up the slack. And I think the Lynx had been lucky this year so far, where they've been behind and someone steps up and has an incredible last-minute shot or defensive play, and there was nothing left in the barrel for them.
Yeah, you can tell they were kind of looking around, and they're like, the points aren't coming from where they're supposed to come from. We don't have another answer. Mm-hmm. Like, there isn't another well we can dip into. It's just not happening. And it kind of felt like that part. They were definitely putting up a fight in the fourth, but about halfway through the fourth, you can kind of feel their intensity begin to dip, for sure. And that stadium was silent for most of that game. Absolute silence.
There was a point in the second quarter where I just kept saying, I'm not a mathematician, but am I looking at the score? They've only scored 7 points this entire quarter? Mm-hmm. The Lynx? Yeah, insane. I mean, that quarter in particular, and I think the fourth quarter, there were the third as well. There just were some key moments where I'm like, this is an impact play. This is an impact play. This is going to come back and be a key moment in the game. And I think the one that really stands out to me is Boston taking it to Collier. Like, she just was not... She was not going to be scared off the block, and Nafisa did not like that. She did not like that, and she had no answer for it. I think Boston's post work today, if you didn't get the chance to really look at the move she was pulling, the footwork, the up and unders,
and the strength behind them,
the strength, the physicality to have that touch, I was really impressed with her tonight.
Because that was really telling to me. She was doing a lot of the dirty work below the basket, and you can tell that it paid dividends, like a boxer, going to the body. In the beginning, she was like running into this wall, but she was doing what she's supposed to do, and she just didn't stop. And then by the end of the game, they're getting out of her way, basically, because they're like, this isn't working. I don't want to get hit this many times by this big, strong girl.
Right.
Who's also finishing at a high clip. Moves are just completely on point. Footwork is incredible. I don't know. It was a good game. It was a very good game. It was very exciting. And what I saw a lot of was just like active hands from the whole team. It's clear by now, like the coach in the beginning really wanted us to be a defensive team. Like last year, we were clearly an offensive team. We have the ability to score. And it almost to the detriment of our offense, we were very focused on becoming a defensive team. And I feel like we are a defensive team now. Mm-hmm. Like, especially the last 2 games, we've found that gear early on in the game where we're like, we're going to just kind of keep working at it until we find how to stop you, and then we're going to lock that in. And it's going to frustrate the crap out of you. And as a team, we're all bought into that. Like, as a team, you see hands swiping. You see, like, when there's switches and when there's cuts, nobody's just running by players. They bump them. They slap them. They put a little hand here, a little hand there. They're not making it easy for you on the other side to go across the key. They're not making it easy for you to set a pick. All of the things that you're doing, we're going to bug you while you do them. And you can tell it wears on people. I didn't know this. They shared during the game. They said we're the number 1 team as far as holding 3-point percentage down. So we're the hardest team to make a 3-point against. And I think part of that, closing out is hard and annoying. And it feels like you're losing when you have to close out on somebody. But it takes discipline, and it takes you running with your hands in the air in order to make it hard for shots to come through. And you just see it starting to pay dividends at this point in the season, I feel like.
Yeah, I think that was a really incredible team effort. I'm impressed with the energy that folks were coming off the bench with. At no point in that first quarter did I feel like anyone had given up, and clearly by the time we were coasting into the final 4 of the fourth, it seemed like everyone was still firing on all cylinders and understood what needed to be done to complete that game on a high. And I'm super excited for Natasha Howard to have a game like that. At this level, on this day, that was incredible.
No, absolutely. She couldn't... Oh, man. She was so good. And the best part to me is it wasn't one of those games. Everyone knows that you can get hot. You can have a game where you're just never missing. It happens to everybody, even if you're just like a deep bench player. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you come in and you hit and you hit and you hit, and you're like, oh, my God, this is incredible. That was not what this game was. She came in not looking great, working really hard, nothing to show for it. Mm-hmm. But through just like persistence and grit and like a bunch of other buzzwords, she ended up just putting on a masterful performance. So one person I don't want to miss out on is Coulson. So obviously I'm a huge fan of Erin McDonald, and I love that we started her. I think she's like Caitlin Clark light. She does everything the team is built to do. So I love that spot for her. But without Coulson, we would have had a lot of trouble winning this game. She several times was able to come in when the Lynx were just starting to maybe get some momentum going and put some ice on that. Like, as a floor manager, having her out there was extremely valuable. Like, this is a game, even though we won handily, it was a hard one. And I don't think if we had absolutely everybody who was on the floor contribute the way they did, we would have won it. In spite of it being, like, a clear victory. Mm-hmm. It was like, this was a tough one.
It was a battle. It was a team effort. And I know a lot of people are going to be talking about very different aspects of how could this be possible? Did they really win it? Did they really lose it? And it's going to get into semantics and whatnot, but there were a lot of beautiful moments of teamwork that I had not really seen from the Fever collectively throughout an entire performance that I saw today. There were some really great backdoor cuts and the momentum that was being pushed, hustling back onto defense after a fast break. Like, it really was true chemistry that I hadn't seen from all 5 at the same time. There's been pairings, one-offs, where there seems to be 2 people have really worked out the momentum and the flow, but this was a 5-person ordeal, which was just really cool to see.
I feel like the difference that we saw in the game from the first few minutes where we fell behind by 14 to where we turned it around was really that kind of chemistry aspect. It was, we're doing the right things, but we need to be cutting off the ball. Like, I felt like, I don't remember who they interviewed, but they interviewed one of the players right at that point, and they said, we need to be cutting. We need to be, moving out without the ball so that we can start opening up those lanes. And that's like literally what happened, and then it didn't stop. Mm-hmm. And I think like it was so clear in the game, like we were doing so many things right, but we needed those cuts. And once those cuts started happening, open shots started happening, and then Aaliyah started getting to go one-on-one instead of having to go one-on-three. Mm-hmm. And I think it was just such a clear message to the team, like this is what we need as a unit to do. Like, we're doing all the other stuff. If we can just focus on that, then sky's the limit, which it was. Anything else you want to say about this glorious night of basketball? Where our girls got paid? Once again, ladies and gentlemen, this is not a case of rich people getting richer. Sometimes it's a little dirty to just talk about the girls going out there and playing for money. We're in a place where they don't make a lot, okay? They don't make a ton of money. If you don't see them on billboards and commercials, then they're making a decent amount. This is a life-changing amount of money for a lot of people on this team. And it's really exciting. It's exciting for me to see that.
I kind of want to, just a small circle back moment, because we've been talking about in the last few times we've gotten together about the differences between the WNBA and the NBA, and something like this definitely is a key moment of how valuable it is to have this much attention on women's basketball at this time. I was looking at something earlier today about viewership and attendance, and the percentage of viewers have increased so dramatically. Like, when I'm reading these figures, the numbers are astronomical and they seem kind of ridiculous. Like, viewership across ESPN has increased 1.19 million per game, 170% increase over 2023. Ooh. We're talking about a 48% increase of attendance across the league since 2023. Almost 50% more people are going to watch women's basketball. So this is really exciting going into this year with the attention that Caitlin has brought, that Paige has brought, going into these next lines of negotiations, going into expansion teams. Mm-hmm. This is really exciting for women's basketball. It's all good stuff.
It really is. And, like, we're Caitlin fans here, and the Caitlin Clark effect is not something we're ever going to deny. But it's important, just like it should go without saying, but to remember that the Caitlin Clark effect hit into a league that was already ready to shine. Mm-hmm. Like, there was already a fantastic product. There was already so much talent, really exciting stuff happening. So when somebody like a meteor like Caitlin comes, boom, hits, and all of a sudden people notice, it could have easily been like, oh, look, that's the league where that one great person plays. But it was like, whoa, there's a lot of cool stuff happening here. In fact, I don't think Caitlin's necessarily close to the best in that league, which I don't think she is. She's got a long way to go to become the best in the WNBA, which I think is what the world saw and is like, this is exciting. If we love Caitlin and she isn't the best here, what is going on in that place? And I think that's what's so exciting about the WNBA right now. Mm-hmm. And hopefully where things are going to go if things continue to grow and change in the right direction.
Of course. That's going to happen for sure.
Yeah, because that's how the world works in 2025.
Fairness,
large
and good only.
Organizations just do good things. Anyway.
Especially for women.
Yeah. Okay. This is getting way too dark for the end of this.
That's all cut.
Okay, Keisha, so we do have, is it 2 other games this week?
Yes.
Okay.
Do.
Give us the Keisha scouting report for these games coming up.
After this incredible W, a little bit of a break, but Thursday we are seeing just like this little team, you may have heard of them, the Aces. And the Aces are in an interesting position in their season. They have been struggling. We have a similar record right now. I mean, the Commissioner's Cup doesn't go in your total record, so I think they're actually 8-8 as well. They have a lot of talent. That talent has not been coming together on the court as it did last year, similar to playing against the Lynx. Very winnable game if you control momentum, make it difficult for the ball to get into Asia Wilson, and force them to take shots that they don't like. And I know that sounds like that would be the way to win for anybody, but some people are good under pressure and like those awkward shots and will find the angle. They want the shots that they want based off of the same high and low plays that they always run. If you keep the ball out of Asia's hand, it's really hard for them to get that momentum. Huge names across the board, very, very talented, but with this momentum going into it and the struggles the Aces have, this is the big win that we need to keep going for the rest of the next half of the season.
Mm-hmm. And if I remember correctly, the last game, something that really hurt us was Asia's ability to defend Caitlin. And good news, Caitlin's out.
Good news.
There you go.
And then, kind of going into a totally different type of basketball against the Sparks. The Sparks are kind of an anomaly team. They have a lot of talent. They have a lot of really big players. They too have been struggling this year. So at any time the Sparks can put it together, it's going to be challenging. There's still the possibility that Cameron Brink could be making a return by this time. We don't know. She's still listed as out. That's a big problem. I know she's going to be on limited minutes if she does play, but Cameron Brink led in blocks in the small amount of time that she had last season. Beautiful touch.
The whole time she played, she was incredible. So.
Yeah, she's great. So if she comes back in, her paired with Dearica Hamby and Rakia Jackson and Azurá Stevens, those are a lot of tall girls who have crazy range, difficult to find matchups with. And if Kelsey Plum is in the right mood, she can be very difficult to guard. She has really good vision on the court. So not an easy game by any means, especially coming off of many games back to back to back, but both very winnable. We just have to follow the same kind of game plan, making them take hard shots. The Sparks, however, they like to push, they like layups, and they will take those weird shots. So rebounding is going to be super key against these bigs.
They may have big girls, but do they have a pterodactyl?
Pro pterodactyl. It's just what you got to be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Big time allies. All right. Well, congratulations, Fever fans. Big day for us. Hopefully bigger days are coming this season. But this was certainly a good one. Thank you for joining us on this special edition of Fever Replay. We hope you have a great week and that your groins continue to heal.
Bye.